Hey, Tiki Talkers. So I wanted to share today about how much animals are waking up. I'm going to be on a podcast with Renette Senham on the Foghorn Express today. And we're going to be talking about how animals are also part of the Great Awakening. And I want to share a little bit about boys right now as far as telling you a story, how they do it, and just learning how to pay attention to it. This one here, Thornton Morton, the reason I call him Thornton more than Thor is because he doesn't really remind me of like Thor, the god of the Viking god. He reminds me of more Thornton Mellon in Back to School. Like really smart, kind, but he's packaged in this bit of a barbarian sometimes. But I've noticed like so much growth in him. Yes, I shifted his name a little bit, but it's still what he understands, and he likes it. He thinks it sounds more sophisticated. So we're on a different trail, by the way. I kind of took what was going on with that dog to mean I wasn't supposed to be on that specific trail for numerous reasons. And I'm not a coward by any means. I tend to be a little bit more of a bull wanting to face off with somebody because I like to deal with problems head on. But clearly that individual is deranged or hadn't had their medication. So, anyway, back to what I was talking about. They're waking up too. So this one stays either behind me and that one likes to be in front. But yesterday I had, I don't often have sleep disruption, but as part of the ascension, I think everybody is experiencing some kind of disruption in their lives. And so last night around 10 o'clock, I kind of gave up and gave in and was like, I can't sleep, screw it. And I got up and I did a meditation. And I was trying to just get my heart to stop racing, stop the worry. The worries are certainly less than what they were before, but, you're always going to have worries. This is a master class, and you're not supposed to worry. You're supposed to put your energy towards excitement about the now and the joy that you have in your life. So I was working, unwinding my fear and worry and anxiety, trying to convert it more into joy and look at the reality of my situation, how fortunate I am. And it was interesting. I couldn't get my heart to stop racing, though. It was like there was still a lot of subconscious, Booger, Bo, come on. I couldn't get it to stop. And, Thornton comes over and he's just like, he starts panting like a million miles a minute. And I was like, is he in pain? Is he in distress? I thought, maybe I'll let them out again just to double check. So they went out. This one's right next to me. That one's ahead. And they came back in, and then he's like, he never asks to get on the bed. He gets too hot. He likes to know that he can, meaning Thornton, but he gets hot really quickly, kind of like Baldor used to do. He just wants to know he can do it. And I got a low enough profile bed so that he could have that comfort and that security and not feel left out. So he looks at me and he says, please let me on the bed. And I said, okay. And he's at the foot of the bed panting, like really fast. And I was like, God, is he in pain? Like, what's going on? And then I think he was actually me. He was dealing with my heart rate and trying to help me. And he was trying to slow things down, but he was channeling it. He wasn't taking it on. He channeled it. Big difference. I don't want my animals taking on my garbage. It's not fair to them and not right. It's my lesson. I got to figure it out. But that doesn't mean you can't have assistance. So Bo came to the top of the bed and slept on the left side with his head on the pillow. And Thornton got himself kind of adjusted so that his head was on my feet, like he wanted to be touching me. And then the minute they both kind of assumed those positions, and Bo had his head on my chest, like trying to stop my heart from doing what it was doing. And I remember when my father was going through a heart attack, and it was a door that he could go through if he wanted to leave at that point. And I asked him, do you want me to call 911? What do you want? And he said, no, but I don't want to die. And he said, I think I'll die if you call the ambulance. So I called my mom, who was sleeping over at my sister's. I mean, he chose it when it was just me and him in the house. Very fascinating. And that was when I was a practicing healer. And I said, Dad, what do you want to do? And he said, I'd like to stay. And I said, okay, so let's do a couple of things. Go to the bathroom. And he needed to go. And he went, and it alleviated some bodily function pressure because he needed to do number 2, and believe that made a difference. I said, are you still nauseous? And he's like, no, but I still hurt. And then Baldur, who was still in his prime, jumped on the bed. And I said, are you okay with this? And he said, yes. And my father never claimed to be an empath or psychic or anything, but definitely the man had gifts. He just didn't understand them. And certainly his generation was not trained to understand them. But he said he wants to help me. And I said, yes, Dad, he does. So you got a choice here. Do you want to stay a little longer, or do you want to go? I'm okay with either one. And he said, no, I'd like to stay. And I said, okay. And I said, well, that's your agreement with God. You talked to him a little bit. My dad was very good at talking with God. He went to church on a regular basis. He tried to be the best person he could be in this life with everything that he had going on. And Baldur proceeded to rest his head on my dad's chest. And there was like a paw right where the heart would be. And I said, is that hurting you? And he said, no, I'm feeling better. And Baldur looked at me and he said, Mom, I'm helping. I got this. And I was like, okay. And then I started helping. And my father survived, and people thought that we were exaggerating about that night. And when my dad finally got into the doctor, he had like horrific, it would have been a widowmaker. I mean, arteries blocked, the whole 9 yards. And the doctors couldn't believe that he survived that night, much less another week until he got into the hospital. And then, of course, they were like busy wanting to put in stents and all that stuff. So, yeah, one of my healing experiences with a family member, it doesn't matter how close you are, you can facilitate a moment for loved ones. You just have to clear the mechanism and get rid of attachment. Very hard to do. That's why I'm able to work on my animals and myself and loved ones, because I don't have attachment. I have to make sure I go in clearing the mechanism. And so last night, I don't think I was having a heart attack, but I was definitely having anxiety at an unprecedented level, and I couldn't regulate my heart. I was just having too much trouble. And it wasn't a human that gave me comfort. And certainly there weren't any humans around me for a long time that gave me that level of comfort. I had to find the comfort for myself. Arrow was the greatest love of my life, or one of the greatest loves. And he had already passed. I mean, he was not in my life yet, but he's passed now, and I have him back as Arbo. Yes, animals reincarnate. It's happening more and more. It didn't used to happen as much as it's happening now. I've had animals reincarnate all over the place throughout my entire life because being a healer, I even had somebody who's very much in the healing practice and said, wow, you've been awake a long time and you've been heavily protected. And I said, well, yeah, not from myself and my own lessons, but yeah, from a lot of other stuff. So recently, it's been a long time, but the fact is I don't need a human to comfort me in what's going on. These two came to the rescue. William comes to the rescue. Arrow had come to the rescue on so many occasions when he was alive, and then Arbo is Arrow. Came in as a dog. I'm going to tell you, when you have an animal that goes from one species to another in reincarnation, I'm going to talk about that in my next video. It's a transition. It's a different lifetime. They're different, like I've talked about, but transitioning from a horse to a dog is, and I just said it, and he was like, is difficult. So anyway, if you want some help with your health or that of your animal, or you've got a haunting, I need to talk about that too, because I just saw a video on it, connectedenergyhealing.com. Bye, guys.